really started out 100 years ago. The fundamental wish to improve people's lives and to support people living in poverty and isolation was there at that very start. So it's always been the thread through right up to the present day.
So Katherine Low is very much here for all parts of the community. Doesn't matter if you're old, you're young, you're male, you're female, you're trans, you're straight, you're gay, you're black, you're white, for whatever, we are here for people.
Whether you're there as a user of a service or there as a worker, it just felt like a big kind of family.
I don't think there's a week goes by where I don't hear someone say, oh yeah, I used to come to Katherine Low, or oh, I met my husband in Katherine Low. And it seems like everybody in Battersea's got some connection and they've had some time in their life where they've been in that building for a reason.
Katherine Low was a suffragette and she lived locally, but not actually in Battersea. But she was attached to St Mary's Church by her interests in work with women in the community. But she lived as a single woman, never had any family. And when she died, her friends thought that a good thing that would be consistent with her commitment to improving a lot of women and children would be to start a centre in Battersea High Street and set it up as a settlement in memory of her.
So they used something called the Charles Booth maps. Charles Booth walked around London with his team for about 10 years, plotting different areas of wealth and poverty, came up with these maps. And they identified that Battersea was a very poor community at that point.
The Orville Road, where Katherine Low is actually situated, was like the highest poverty in London. I mean, the street crime was really bad. It was full of prostitution, drugs, theft. They lived in massive big houses where there was 6 families living in one house. They had no bathrooms and they were very poor, very, very poor.
It was an area where social workers felt a lot of need. So they wanted to set up settlements within the community rather than sort of coming in from Chelsea or Hampstead or something. They wanted to live amongst the people so that they could help them as part of the community.
And that was in 1924, when it's then in May it officially opened, 1924.
It became very clearly focused on women and children. So in the settlement they did work with bringing women in to show them how to cook well, how to feed their children, how to live frugally but as healthily as possible. They would do things like issue shoes because children were barefooted, and there was a bath in the building, so children would come in and have a bath. 100 years ago, it was a charity, and the charity meant that local people gave to it. Francis Holland School, very wealthy school over in Sloane Square, and St Mary's Church, and Christ College, Cambridge, felt it to be their business to support in a charitable way the existence and the work of the settlement.
A lot of your industry, like all your big drums of oil, everything, all new and all timbers, all came on barges, and you had little tugs on the Thames. It was supplying all the industries, and Battersea Bridge Road, because that was very busy, well, even when I grew up and you travelled around, that fed the industries like shop places, the businesses.
You used to have a glucose factory called Garton's, and you could smell that all over Battersea. It was horrible.
There was 3 families on one on each floor. One toilet between the 3 families, no bathroom. So my husband bought a tin bath, made a cupboard and put it on the landing so we could have a bath. I thought that was just awful for London.
When I was living in Battersea, I lived in a place called Heath Road. And Heath Road in the 70s was a kind of derelict area. It had lots of bomb sites and houses which are dilapidated.
Battersea was all Victorian houses. They flattened him, they started building the Surrey Lane, Bedrick Court, Ethelberger. They was all going up when I was a child.
But it was certainly different to what it is now. It was much poorer, I guess. You know, there were a lot of like really big families with a lot of children. There were people who were out of work. There were a lot of teenagers who were out of work and young people who were looking for jobs then. It was just after the big riots that had happened in South London in 81, I think. So there was still some sort of burnt out places. South London was a little bit sort of ragged.
There was a sort of probably lower number of people coming from other countries at that point, actually. That's increased as time has gone on. So there were a lot of people living in the area who were sort of brought up here, really.
The fellow sisters that I was articled to, a very good man called John Payne, and I don't know what his connection with Katherine Low was, but he was asked his article class to come down and be poor man's lawyers in Battersea. And so every Monday night, I suppose during term time or whatever, I came down and gave legal advice as best I could to people who needed that. I suppose I'm a do-gooder, but in fact it should have been a do-better. It was just one of those things that I came from a very privileged background, and if I could help in that way, then that's what I should be doing.
It was a very old-fashioned place when I first went. So there were some really interesting people on the committee. We had fabulous people. Our chairman was John Waits of Waits the Builders, and he was so dynamic and fabulous. He used to row up on a motorbike. He did everything he could for Katherine Low, and he invited all of us, all the volunteers and some of the young people, all to his house out in Surrey somewhere, and we swam in their pool and they made us all this lovely food. He was amazing. He was just absolutely amazing. And whatever idea I threw at him, he would say, let's make it work then, Jenny. You know, so he had lots of confidence in myself and Helen, and he backed us up.
When I was young, in my 12 or 13, my mother actually worked in Katherine Low Settlement because Battersea Citizens Advice Bureau was based there. And she would come to work there, and I remember sitting around in the school holidays while she was doing work and feeling a bit fed up. I had to sit in that rather grim building.
My son went to playgroup over 50 years ago. So that's how first I met anybody in KLS. So they had a lovely playgroup there, and it was the mothers always helped out, you know, as well. So you got to know everybody. So for me, you know, getting to know people in the area was great. Well, it was for my son I was doing it, but I was also doing it for me as well. Because a long day at home with two children, you know, driving your crackers.
I think what KLS makes it special, particularly I would say, is the accessibility and the openness that members of the local community can come without any barriers.
I will take everybody on, regardless of what religion or colour or creed or whatever it is, and I think that's the ethos of the place as well. Actually, everybody's in it together, which is great in a way, which is a lot of support from each other too as well. But,
a kind of process of connecting in the neighbourhood, across class, across life experiences, but saying, actually, what needs to happen is that we have an understanding and a way of making something good come out of the differences.
We're not here to tell people what to do. We're here to listen to people and to respond to their needs. And I think that's a lot different than a lot of people's experiences outside of KLS.
Crazy.
There's so much happening. There's kids running around everywhere, people walking up and down stairs, but a good crazy. It was a buzz. It was like a general buzz that made you feel like you were at home.
There's a lot of buzz, a lot of things going on from so many people from different backgrounds, and that was beautiful.
We used to, arrive at sort of 8:30 in the morning, and you could sort of hear the kind of the crescendo rise over the course of the day as the place got busier. The kind of the joy and the laughter and the kind of the giggles and the kids crying, or the joy, the peals of laughter, whatever it might be, or the hum of kind of concentration at homework club in the evening. And so the kind of that atmosphere was brilliant as it sort of went through the course of the day.
Katherine Low Settlement rented the building from Christ's College, which was at the time running a boys' club, and they worked closely together until 1947 when they merged together.
It was in two sections when I was there. The entrance of the boys' club was in Orville Road itself. The entrance of the Katherine Low Settlement was in Battersea High Street.
When I was old enough to go into the Katherine Low Settlement, I went in there, yeah, and I loved it. Well, I think all us kids did. We was there every day.
George, he came to Katherine Low when he was 11 years old. He's now 100. He goes back to, the difference that it made. It gave him an education. It made him, it kind of widened his horizons.
Christ's College Boys Club. It was financed by Christ's College, Cambridge, so that now and again you had undergraduates coming down. And every year you had a 3-week camp holiday in Felixstowe. We could be taken to Prince's Head and get on a 49 bus and go off to Clapham Common and have the cricket stuff there, or football or something like that.
We used to go in there and play and dance, do dances and all play together.
They had books that they gave out, so the families were able to have a book at home, and they were very keen to teach the children that used to come into the youth groups to see newspapers and do quizzes, testing them on what they'd read in the newspaper about current affairs and so on.
And you would have a question session coming from those articles in the broadsheets. So, and they weren't all sport, there was politics in it as well. You knew what was happening in Europe.
We all loved it going in there. All the kids that went into the Katherine Low loved it.
It was a youth club for kids, somewhere to play, do art, football, table tennis. It kept us off the streets.
The youth club had been closed down. They didn't tell me that in the interview. And then when I got here, it had been closed down because there'd been a pretty serious incident and a youth worker had been hurt. And so there was nothing happening at all. And it was ground zero, really, to start from. I started just going out on the streets here and talking to young people. They were just hanging about. So I just said, let's get the door open. We started to employ some part-timers who lived locally. And it just sort of rolled on, and I discovered that I absolutely loved it. Because I was seeing the girls around, but they weren't really coming in the club, not many of them. And we started to think we could be doing stuff with girls. So we set up a girls' night, and I stuck to it, to my guns. People weren't particularly keen on it and thought, it wouldn't work. And that became a huge success story, the girls' night. It was absolutely wonderful. The building was terrible. The building was a challenge. There was always water pouring in. It was very old and cold. There was a small room and then there was the back room where we did art and craft activities and things like that. That used to flood on a regular basis. And on Thursday evenings we had the Thursday Club, and that was for young adults with mild learning difficulties. It was huge. An ordinary social night out for young people who were very often stuck at home with their parents and kind of excluded from things. And I can remember sometimes having 70 and 80 people in there every Thursday. And the atmosphere was absolutely fantastic. We had music, they played pool, we did all sorts of other activities. We used to play cards, it was a great youth club.
To be honest, I'd say when I first joined, I first walked through the door for the first few sessions, etc., I thought it was chaos, total chaos, you know. But the thing is, there's organised chaos and then there's chaos. So it was, in a kind of way, without being disrespectful, it was an organised chaos. Again, we're going back to the late 1980s, where in youth provisions, there were so many different facets of things that you can actually get involved in. You know, we do arts and crafts, we do sport, we do football, we do swimming, we'd go on camps, we'd go on coach trips, we'd go to the seaside, we'd go to adventure playgrounds and parks. Just going on any one of the summer camps, any one of them would be a highlight for me.
Holidays, camping, once a year. Iron Leap were on Ashdown Forest, 1971 to 75. Showing up on I think it was a Friday morning, and we used to go for a week. I think it was 2 mini buses, bell tents, like the old army bell tents. We would get there, had to set them up, dig holes to make a fire in, cook. We all helped out peeling the spuds and sprouts and getting the sausages ready and making the open fire, which was lovely, and the smoke and the smell of grub cooked on an open fire is lovely. It was a holiday. Get out, get off to your estate, run wild. And basically that's what we did. We was in the forest, we run wild. Never forget it. It's simple as that. It was brilliant.
Some money had been raised to set up something called the Keep in Touch project, and that was a daytime project for young people with learning difficulties. We took a mixed group. Helen and I decided to be brave, so she took the Keep in Touch group and I took the youth group. Very cool bunch of sort of teenagers, right, and I didn't tell them that we were mixing it with the Keep in Touch project until the day before we were going. No, I'm not getting in a minibus, I'm not getting in there with them. We had 2 minibuses and they divided themselves. So the first day, couple of days were a little bit like my lot, were just no way, yeah. And then they started to see these characters, because of course we had a big cooking tent and we ate in the tent together, and these characters would come up and ask them questions and say, well, I need a hat like that, and how do you do this? And we watched this alchemy happened over a couple of days, and then that was it. It just turned into the biggest laugh. We had a fabulous time, and when we came back, the 2 minibuses were completely mixed.
When I first started working there, it was Youth Club 5 nights a week, and it was a Keep in Touch disability project, Monday to Thursday during the daytime.
But actually the building was underused, and I realised, because I knew what settlements were like elsewhere around London and other places, that it wasn't really doing the full job of a settlement, and we could do a lot more.
Sarah herself was very conscious as the community worker that there was certainly a need out in the local area which wasn't being met. But we didn't want to just sit around and say, oh, well, let's run this and let's run that. What the purpose of that survey was to find out what people living in the area wanted. And so a survey was done. It was very good. And what showed was that there was a need.
So stuff for elders, stuff for smaller children, stuff for newly arrived families who could do with English classes. Those were the core things at the beginning.
Raising the money, of course, and that had to be done first. We couldn't start the services without getting the money in first to fund them. So it was about fundraising, and Sarah did a lot of that.
When I first went to work there, the building was in a terrible state. The place hadn't been very well managed financially. And the building was uninsurable because there were break-ins really regularly, and the windows were broken, the roof was leaking. It was in a bad way. Tracy had been working there for a year before I got there, but she and I just set about improving the fabric of the building.
So every Monday morning we'd arrive and the windows would be smashed and something would be stolen, or our office would be raided, and we really didn't have a lot, so I don't know what they were ever taking, but we spent more time fixing things and trying to build things and put them back to normal. And then eventually we started getting grants from the council and from other funders, and we then put grills up at the windows, we then had alarms installed, and we made it a really safe place and a safe environment. And then suddenly all the burglaries and that stopped, and we had people just lining up to come and do something in our building. We just never stopped reinventing things. We just constantly wanted to bring in more projects, more people, bigger variety, help the community. So when people also came along and said, we want to run a karate class or a yoga class or a Tai Chi, even if it wasn't us running it, because we didn't have the manpower to be the teachers for everything, by allowing these people to come in the building and pay us a tiny bit of room hire for an hourly hire, it gave us extra money to plough back into the building and run our own projects, and then it gave the community a new activity.
We were slowly moving away from, when I joined the committee, they were not the good and the great, but they were good people who wanted to come and try and do some good in the area. And we changed that so that we're actually much more locally based, and local people taking local decisions for it.
And I knew Sarah from many years previously. We'd known each other for a long time, and she knew that I knew the area because I worked in it. I was a social worker. So she asked me if I'd be interested in becoming a trustee, and I was, and so I did join, and I was a trustee for 25 years.
We always seemed to be living on the edge of existence, not having very much money. And then I got a letter in 1991, I think it was, from Keith Chapman, the wonderful man who was treasurer for so many years, formally saying, John, we're going to run out of cash very, very soon. This is very serious. And at that point, we were able to sell the Catch and Baird Hall, which we weren't using ourselves. We weren't getting a lot of money from it. And then eventually, after we tried to sell everything, the last thing that was with us was the piano. So we got a price for the piano of 70 quid. And so that was better than nothing. We actually had to pay £70 to get it taken away.
The council ran lunch clubs for the elderly, and they just stopped them. They just closed them all down, which was terrible. And day centres for the elderly, they just closed them down. So there was really, it was really quite shocking. So Katherine Low, along with other charities and voluntary organisations, have had to move in to fill that gap.
So the Elders Project now, that we started off thinking we'd work with 50, it's got 400 people on the books right now. And they're people who come for exercise, for a nice sociable meal, for arts and crafts, for doing dance, drama.
The activities, when I retired and I wanted to do something, I looked after my grandchildren for a while, but as they got older then, I needed something, to do. And obviously somebody had told me about Katherine Low, and that's the place to go.
I think because we're older, we need things like this. When you lose a husband or a wife, you need to go to those sort of places.
Because obviously I just moved into the new builds across the road, and it's like not working anymore either. It's like I'm just literally at home on my own, and you know, sort of like just getting more and more depressed and, you know, and that. So, yeah, so it was nice to come here and that. My anxieties were up a bit when I first came, but the staff and the members are so lovely. And they just everyone makes you sort of feel at home, you know, and that. So, yeah, it's been a blessing coming here.
There was a Tai Chi and I wanted to do that. And line dancing, I'd never been able to dance, so I thought this is my chance to learn. Oh, but they were amazing.
There was a group that, you know, used to start at, I think it was kind of some sort of dance class. They would start at 11:30. They were all in there at 9 o'clock, just sitting, chatting, having cups of tea together and just kind of catching up with one another. And it was Katherine Low was such a part of their life, and it didn't really matter what they were doing. It was the fact that they had their kind of friends, they developed that friendship.
Some of the people who came to the lunch club, they were so bawdy. I mean, filthy, potty-mouthed people. And you had some really prim and proper people who were kind of shaken to their boots. But bit by bit, you know, it was all just the laugh that you had when you came to the lunch club. In the Elders project, there was one particular guy who was very out about his gay history and the fact he'd had a male partner who died, who he was always talking about. And from there, it was quite clear that there were going to be other gay or lesbian people who were coming into our Elders world who might have an interest in connecting, particularly having space of their own. And that has evolved. And there was one wonderful occasion fairly recently when the very big mover and shaker Australian gay guy, Peter Tatchell, came to talk about his life, basically. And that was to tell the story of his life as a gay man and the gay movement and all the rest of it and his history. And the hall was packed. It was in the evening, and it was all the elders, black women with their church hats on. I mean, for me, I was wonderfully pleased and surprised at what a variety of people and how many people had come to hear Peter Tatchell. And Peter Tatchell's story was about injustice and what got him going in the first place when he was young in Australia. And it was really powerful. And it was really good to have him come along as a sort of event in the centre. So we started up a Young Carers project. And the Young Carers project in those days was quite radical. It was a new movement, really, an awareness that children who cared for their parents, particularly from single families, had very little opportunity to socialise or to be themselves or get support or recognition for the part they had to play in their family.
For me, when I was younger, my mum had muscular dystrophy. And so I was doing a lot of housework type things. Didn't necessarily have to care for her to start with, but it was like do a bit of hoovering, do a bit of washing. But my mum obviously got worse, as some parents did, and then it would move into things like personal care, helping her in the bath, helping her in the shower. And there's also the emotional side of it as well.
Because my parents have mental ill health issues. When I was growing up, they've passed away now. I think social work at the time, before they left, recommended the youth club.
In about 1998, they set up a young carers group that was going to run out of the Katherine Low Settlement. So I started attending that.
All I remember is that they had loads of bean bags. They had tables and chairs, and I think they had snooker up there, and I think games consoles as well. And I think I just sit on the bean bags and just hang around, and just chatting rubbish with my friends.
For us, it was great because we literally had the whole of the building. So you could go upstairs and there might be people playing pool. You could come downstairs and there might be an art group going on or people chatting. It was just really I feel like we brought the building to life, but the building also brought us to life because of what we had to deal with at home being young carers. We didn't get that sense of fun. So there was just always a sense of fun about the place.
So having the Young Carers project, it was a breath of fresh air. I was being cared for. You can actually go and ask someone, oh, cool, what's actually up with your parents? What's your home situation? And you don't feel weird. And you don't feel weird about it. And it was a place where I could be around people that just got it. My guard wasn't up.
It was all the kind of teenage oh, so-and-so said this about so-and-so, but it would blow over within 5 minutes. But yeah, all the normal teenage stuff, which we actually needed and weren't getting because of our home situation.
And there was always a youth worker ready to help me. Reg was the one that I remember. He was so he was so nice. Like, do you know what? He was a youth worker that he just knew how to interact with the kids, like with us. Then they had like the planned trips. So obviously going to Wales, going on like summer holiday programs.
A trip we did to Italy with a group of young carers from Liverpool. So we had this joint project with funding. We went camping in the Alps in Italy. And of course, our group were really interested in the boys and girls from the Liverpool group, and there was all manner of shenanigans going on. So I spent a lot of time very noisily unzipping my tent, getting my torch, going around and kind of whacking the side of tents where there was a... We also enabled a project for severely disabled adults, which then became the Baked Bean Theatre Company to get going in our building. And they were with us 25 years ago, and it was a real launch pad for them. So the big ground floor gym was used for that theatre group to get going. That's now really going strong. They have their own full-time premises at the Wilditch Centre up the road.
The role as a character, perform plays and shows as well with Baked Beans. I was there for the last 17 years from the Baked Bean Company. We are part of the charity. It was 21 years birthday and I was there for day one. And it was my time and me and my drum in my hand. So I remember the old Baked Beans is at our home. It was so good to be in the room. Like drama workshops as well, and also I used to do the drums. Yeah, I used to do drum as well with Baked Beans.
Because we were doing all these different kinds of family work, when the government introduced the Sure Start programme, which had to be led by the community, we were very well placed to do the initial outreach to contact families with children in the early years stage, children under 5, living within a quarter of a mile radius of the settlement. 700 families was the target number, to find out what would they like if we got the funding to have Battersea Sure Start. So I felt like a fairy godmother, because we had a building, we had a minibus, we had some land, and then we had all this money to spend on really good, really imaginative aspects of early years family support.
So the first time I went to Calais, my son was 2 months. I think he was in January 2007. From that day, we used to do every single activities on offers, and we used to go on trips, learning about motherhood, learning about breastfeeding, sleeping routine, all sorts of things. They were opening a lot of access to things that normally some family, let's say disadvantaged family, would not have access, but they were not closed off. I mean, in some of the group, I was with some, we could say the yummy mummy, wealthy, but also people from the estate. And it doesn't really matter. We were all friends, and our kids become also friends.
When you hear some of the people say, oh, I really didn't know what to do. I had a newborn baby, I didn't have any family living close by. Katherine Low was my family, you know, coming in there with my small child gave me the support I needed. Otherwise, I'd have just been a stay-at-home mum and really isolated and wouldn't have known what to do.
So I felt like it was my little circle, my little safe place. I had my friends, I was learning about motherhood. I was getting the best mother I could be because of all these classes. It was the best year of my life, to be honest. I was feeling like I belong. It was my community, and obviously everybody was living around, so we were all in the same area, which is really easy to build connection with each other. And at some point, we were offered to become Sure Start parent volunteer. They were also asking for our input which I saw was really good because we were involved.
And one of the delights for me now, 17 years later, is that many of those Sure Start mothers, particularly the ones that got most involved on the committee and helping to run groups for themselves, are now really major community activists, running programmes locally in the borough, different community halls. I could name 6 community centres that have got person-led, Sure Start parents. We were starting English classes, and we had the newly arrived Somali communities coming into the area. And they were very new, very unfamiliar, both unfamiliar to us and we were unfamiliar to them. And we started a Workers' Education Association English class. It was really good news because we got a wonderful Somali woman who was very good English speaker and very literate to be the tutor. And she was the best person you could have possibly had, and that was great, and it gave us a starting point for building the ESOL project, which is now, as you know, sort of 5 days a week and a very flourishing, well-used resource, and with the creche alongside it, so the children getting early preschool English language development.
2 or 3 times now we've arranged boat trips from Battersea down to Greenwich to the Catty Sark. And that's a really exciting trip for our mums, and they really like to come. They bring their babies in the buggies and we all have a very nice time. And they get to see other bits of London which they don't usually get to see. That's one of the main things we try and extend their understanding of what's around on their doorstep.
There was a scheme within the ESOL programme called Discover London, and it would pair up a student from the programme who obviously didn't know London with a local resident, and that you were both given a travel card and you would just go off and sort of explore. And it was partly about helping people to become confident negotiating London on their own and building that confidence, but it was also great for sort of friendship building with people that you wouldn't necessarily otherwise meet.
Abigail got F- on her test, or what?
We did a lot of work with children and young people, particularly from refugee backgrounds, through our Love to Learn programme. And again, that was set up in direct kind of conversation with local refugee families, saying we need more support for our children in terms of their education. I want to learn English as a parent, because then I can help my child through their schooling. I can understand what the teachers are saying to me when we go along to parents' evening. And ultimately, actually, if I've got better English, I can then actually go and get a job and start making that sort of economic difference and kind of growth for my family.
We support many local families. We support parents who come to the centre with a range of problems and issues like housing benefit reduction and debt, many other problems. And also we work with young people in this school who have got behavior problems and those who have special education needs. So we support families to have a school placement. Majority of the work we do is advocacy. We speak on behalf of people.
So Love to Learn also runs there's a junior homework club, we have the GCSE homework club, there's a youth club, which is all part of it.
I'm in the future with my Benetton, flying car and super green home. World champion boxer, when I hurt my opponent, I become his doctor.
I work for a charity called Fairbeats, and we do music workshops with asylum seekers and refugees who may either have been born here or their families have travelled over, and we have partnered up with Love to Learn and we do music workshops with them every Thursday. Just different music activities that get them on their toes, different rhythm games, and then they might write a song.
One of the things that Katherine Low does, which isn't part of the homework club, but which is part of the Love to Learn session, is they'll take them to a farm in Wales. I don't know if somebody has spoken about it, but actually where the youngsters have come from far afield, never gone to a farm, and they take the phones away from them, and they live on the farm for a week, cooking, feeding the animals, dealing with everything else there, sorting things out themselves. So all the electronic things are taken away, and they're just brilliant, and they actually blossom.
I set up, originally I started with what the community wanted, which was start teaching them Arabic language, because a lot of people want to learn Arabic so they could read the Quran. And in the summertime, we used to focus on the creative project. And while we were in Katherine Low Settlement, we used the ground floor room where we used, where the young people used to come, and then they used to do rehearsals to their play and things like that, until we produced the show at the end in Battersea Art Centre. Eldest person was the director of the play, was 17 years old. I couldn't direct them myself, to be honest with you. So I said, who likes media? And one of the girls said, I like media. I said, oh yes, come, you're the director, I appoint you. And she was the lead, she was very good. And she got so much skills from there that later on she went to university, and all the young people who participated in this become successful. And it was an amazing trip where we took, for 5 years, I think in a row, a group of young people on a sailing trip in 2 boats. And it was phenomenal that what they've learned, their skills. Kids come back from these trips, cleaning their homes, they're completely different people. It's amazing changes.
We couldn't manage it on our own anymore. We had got too big. We had made too many projects. We had expanded so much, and it was only me and Sarah. And then we realised we needed help. We needed extra hands to come in and help us run it.
I was the chief exec for nearly 11 years, and I joined really as their kind of first chief exec in kind of modern times. There had been wardens before that, people who used to kind of literally live in the building. But that kind of model changed, and they appointed me. As I said, I started in January 2013. So when I first joined, unfortunately Katherine Low had rather spread itself too thinly. They'd got a little bit lost of who are we here for, what are we trying to do. So those first few months, those first couple of years were really just trying to go out and build those relationships in the community, work out where people are at, what they wanted, and then to start building programs and projects and services with people.
Aaron Barber was our first director, and as I said, he was appointed about halfway through the period that I was chair, and he really took KLS forward in a very, very positive and expanded it considerably.
There's always been a big ethos of Katherine Low of, we don't have to do everything ourselves. In fact, we shouldn't be doing everything ourselves. There are loads of other amazing organisations and people in the community, so how can we work with them to kind of build up their skills and their knowledge and their confidence to kind of go and do their thing.
We've always been like the umbrella organisation for the smaller ones that want to start out. And in the years of working down there, we've had the Law Centre in there, we've had Citizens Advice Bureau in there, had Huntington's disease, Fuel Banks and Families, which was an organisation to help families set up with fuel poverty, gas, electric.
Pre-COVID, we had 38 other groups in the building, all providing kind of different services. Some we then had some back offices where these groups could then run their charity from as well. And therefore you get all this kind of cross-pollination of all the different groups in there.
It's been there for people like me who want to make change in their communities. Like, I want to develop an organisation. I don't have a place to go to. Katherine Low Settlements give me that support. And then that's where I start up my organisation.
We still continue to work with over 200 volunteers. Not all of them come into the centre. Some of them are telephone buddies, ringing people when they need support. Some of them are doing mentoring, working at home with the children and the families out of Katherine Low. But without the volunteers, we couldn't do the work we do.
The volunteers will be people who may have received services in the past, been members of the past, but who are now perhaps in a better position, or there may be people who've never had services but who want to be able to come and do what they can here in Katherine Low.
Basically, that was the first time I was really involved in volunteering for my community. And for me, it was amazing to be able to give back, but also it opened the door to more friendships and more network with the community. Really it made me feel like I belong somewhere.
But we've always got involved locally in issues which concern people, you know, whether that's food bank, you know, not having enough food, whether it was when people were needing warm places to be last winter.
And another campaign that we did with the Show Start parent volunteer and Sarah is when they wanted to charge, I think it was in 2011, they wanted to start charging the children £2.50 to access the playground in Battersea Park that is supposed to be free. So we campaign, me and other moms, we talked to BBC, we talked to the TV, and then again the council did a U-turn. We didn't win every time. There's one time when they wanted to remove the 1 o'clock club. This we didn't win. They removed it. Now it's the mini golf.
I remember when the government, the previous government, was really ratcheting up its rhetoric around the so-called perceived problems with refugees and asylum seekers. We actually joined a national campaign. I remember doing a rally. We got the local MP involved. We marched up Battersea High Street.
I went with a whole lot of the students from the ESOL class, and we'd made this wonderful banner. It was huge. It was about as long as this room. And it needed about 7 people to walk with it. And it said, Katherine Low loves all refugees. It's Katherine Low Settlement loves all refugees with a heart, and Fran had made it. And we walked from the settlement. None of the staff were going to go because they were paid staff, but by then I was retired, so it was fine. And we were in Parliament Square, sort of with this thing. And it was a very vivid, attractively done thing. And it got on the telly, and it was, and the women who came were just, I think they just felt good.
The most interesting time in my 34 years of working in Katherine Low was when COVID hit, because none of us had laptops. We all was working from great big massive PCs on our desk. We've never had fancy equipment. We've always made do with anything we've been donated or we've been given, and or we've scrambled around to purchase. And then suddenly on a Friday I got a phone call to say, don't come in on Monday, we're shutting the offices down. And then we had to completely change how we worked. We couldn't be in the building with the people coming to us. We had to set up a way of helping them from our front rooms. And it was amazing, absolutely amazing. We've done so well. All the staff just adapted to it really quickly.
For the Elders Project, phone calls were being made in some cases every day. And then the Coronavirus Angels got going, which was in conjunction with Sacred Heart Catholic Church, St Mary's, Battersea Mission Methodist Church, Katherine Low, and then Citizens Advice and Law. You know, it's a whole network of everybody saying we're going to look at how we can, food banks hugely, ensure that people who are incredibly isolated, haven't got family support, haven't got other networks, that it's kind of going to work. And it did. And it was a real evidence of, if you've got people in a net of some sort, a safety net, then that net's going to get tighter when it needs to.
We sent out care packages, so we found out what everybody wanted, and we made sure care packages were delivered through, you know, to their front doors. And people took up art, people took up reading, people took up doing puzzles, and it got the most vulnerable people in the community through a lockdown without feeling really isolated and that everyone had forgotten them.
But it was also then very difficult to then go through the cost of living crisis, which then reared up its ugly head quite quickly after COVID. And again, that felt like, oh my gosh, we've just been through one, you know, generational, once in a lifetime thing. Here's another sort of mountain to climb.
I think because the public purse is in such a desperate state now, it's very difficult. So whereas I would love to just wave another magic wand and have Sure Start funded in the way that we were able to be, there's just no resources for that. So you're reliant on the charitable sector for the funds primarily.
This train is for London Waterloo. The next station is Clapham Junction.
Katherine Low has been very successful at raising the money, but it's never, the worry never goes away. You know, we can never sit back on our laurels and say, oh, well, that's it, you know.
I think on the whole, it's been quite positive in how it's kept going. It's almost like a ship, if you like, which is sort of it rocks and teeters and everything else in there. But do you know what? It's still there.
We have a new CEO, Sarah Gibb, who's been working in another settlement. So we're hoping she can bring us into the next century. I'd love to think that Katherine Low will still be here in 100 years' time. I know I won't be, but I really hope Katherine Low is. There is definitely still a need for us, and we know that. We're still high profile in the community, and we know there is a demand for our work. What has changed around there now is it's instead of just being mostly council estates, it's got a very rich area. So all the luxury apartments and flats that's gone up, all lining the Thames, has changed the nature of Battersea. So what used to be a working man's cafe is now a posh street cafe bistro, or what used to be the local pub where everybody who lived on the estates would go and drink is now the local wine bar. Very little is free around here. You know, everything you go is very costly. So people still like to come to the community centre where they can come in, they don't get charged for being there. And have a sort of social life together with each other and support each other. I've had people come in off the street who's been sleeping on a park bench all night long, and he just comes in and ends up eating my lunch. Or I've had a man come down from the immigration centre. I said, go down to Katherine Low, they'll help you. Even though it's not something we specialise in, we never turn them away. We get them the help. We make sure they're put in the right direction, and if we can't help them, we'll find the person that can. And that's just always what we've done, really.
It's a bit of a cliche, but it's sort of the heart of Battersea is the thing it says, I think, on the website. But I do think that is true. I think it really is. It's a place where you can feel the old Battersea, but equally it's not ridiculously nostalgic. It's always looking forward.
It's got a very strong reputation in the borough, a very strong reputation. I think it's become very well known, and I think that's because of how valuable it's been and how the quality of the work that's done here.
It's an open door where you can come in, make yourself a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, even if you don't want to do anything else, and you will always meet somebody to chat to. So that's, important.
The AGMs every year, something really special, because sometimes staff, especially me, I'm up in the office, I forget sometimes why I'm so busy and why I'm doing what I'm doing. And then when you sit back and you hear the experiences the children have had during summer camps during the summer, or what the members have been doing, or you see their artwork, you see things they've made and poems they've written, and it just reminds you this is a really good place to be. So I suppose it's always the events where you can step back and see so many people attending. The royal visit this year, having the Duchess of Edinburgh come in January, that was lovely. And looking back, we've always had this history where royal people, have come into Katherine Low. And to mark our 100th year as well was really special. That was lovely. Our 100th birthday celebration in the Fredwell's Gardens was lovely, because all the neighbours turned up. Everybody came from the community. We had such support from the council, the mayor. Everybody just knew it was happening, and they came down to help us celebrate. That was beautiful.
And by the end of my time, by my calculations, the ripple effect, we were supporting about 1,000 people directly every year. The wider ripple effect was, say, 4, 5, 6 times that. So I think we were making a difference to about another 4,000 or 5,000 people. If you amplify that over the 100 years that we've been here, I think we've touched individuals' lives, but I think the wider community that we've touched and made a difference to.
It's given me a purpose, it's taught me a lot. It's taught me how to care and be a nice person with people and not judge. And I didn't ever want to work for any corporate organisation. I always wanted to work for people like KLS, people that gave something.
Katherine Low Settlement, seeing that environment, the love that the staff had for the work and the people kind of brushed off on me.
Such a gift to be able to hang out with people that have got lots of different life experiences, and I just don't think you get that in so many other places. So yeah, for me it's been amazing.
KLS was a very satisfying and very uplifting experience for me to be able to take it forward as chair.
Best job of my life so far. It was a very, very special 11 years in my life.
I feel like the great granny in this neighbourhood because I've been doing youth work for so long around here. So I know people whose grandchildren, I knew them as little ones and now they're grandparents themselves. And I think I just live up the road. And for me, this is my neighbourhood that I've kind of had incredible relationships and friendships with people.
KLS has given me lifelong friendships. It gave me back some of my childhood. And it's given me so many memories from those groups and that time. Those are things that just cannot be taken away.
To keep me happy and to give me something to look forward to in the morning when you get out of bed and think, oh, they're going to come and pick me up today. And so that's what keeps me sane, is the fact that I have somewhere to go and somewhere that cares about me and I care about them as well.